Calaroga Shark Media. Hello and welcome to Murder Weekly. This episode is titled, No Stone Unturned.
The quiet town of Henley Beach was rattled by a series of unsolved murders, casting long shadows over its picturesque streets. An air of suspicion hung heavy as the townsfolk whispered about the elusive serial killer. The latest victim was found by the serene shoreline, a grim contrast to the peaceful setting. The detective on the case arrived. With a disheveled coat and a seemingly scatterbrained demeanor, he hid a razor-sharp mind behind his unassuming appearance. The victim was pretty, probably 32, strangled, robbed. A tan line suggested a watch was missing. Among the crime scene evidence, the detective discovered an intriguing clue. Tire tracks from a Jeep Wrangler, deeply imprinted in the soft sand near the body. Officer Stevens, a young officer who had been first to respond, hurried over to the detective. "Detective, we found something. Tire tracks over here," he said, leading the detective to the edge of the crime scene. The detective crouched down, examining the tracks closely. "Off-road tires, specifically Goodyear Wrangler Duratrax," he muttered, his mind already racing with possibilities. Standing up, he turned to Officer Stevens. "These tires are common on Jeeps, but given the width and tread pattern, I'd say they're from a newer model Jeep Wrangler, 2019, Sahara trim possibly, the kind of car that wouldn't typically be around a place like this unless it had a purpose." Officer Stevens nodded, jotting down the details. "I'll run a check on all 2019 Jeep Wrangler Saharas in the area. Any specific color we should look out for?" The detective paused, his gaze lingering on the tracks. "Let's start with the more uncommon colors, like firecracker red or ocean blue. They're more distinctive." As Officer Stevens walked away to relay the information, the detective stood there a moment longer, his eyes scanning the horizon. The tire tracks were a crucial clue, one that could lead them to the heart of this shadowy mystery enveloping Henley Beach. In the ritzy part of Henley Beach, the detective pulled up to a vibrant, colorfully decorated house, known to be the residence of Raphael Franklin. Known for his boisterous personality, love of concerts, and fine dining, Raphael was quite a character in the town. His Jeep Wrangler, a firecracker red 2019 model, parked in the driveway, matched the description the detective was looking for. As the detective approached the door, the sound of classic rock music wafted through the air. He knocked, and the door swung open to reveal Raphael, a man with a larger-than-life presence, his attire as flamboyant as his personality. "Raphael Franklin, I'm investigating the recent murders at Henley Beach. Your Jeep matches the description of a vehicle seen near the crime scene," the detective stated, getting straight to the point. Raphael's expression shifted from surprise to concern. "Murders? That's terrible, but what does that have to do with me or my Jeep?" The detective explained the tire tracks found at the crime scene. Raphael listened intently, then his face lit up with realization. "Ah, but I have an alibi," Raphael exclaimed, retrieving his phone. "I was at the theater that night at the Rolling Stones concert. And look here," he said, showing the detective a selfie on his phone. In the photo, Raphael was grinning broadly, standing next to none other than Mick Jagger himself. The timestamp on the photo confirmed it was taken the night of the murder. The detective studied the photo carefully, then nodded. "This seems to check out. Do you remember anything unusual about that night? Anyone who might have borrowed your Jeep?" Raphael chuckled, a glint of pride in his eyes. Borrow my Jeep? Never. Besides, it wasn't even with me that night. It was in the shop getting a new stereo system installed, one of those fancy ones with satellite radio. The detective said, I'm a podcast man myself. It was a throwaway line, the kind of random detail he would throw in to keep suspects off balance. In the shop, you say? Do you have any documentation or proof of that? Raphael nodded enthusiastically, walking over to a cluttered desk. He rummaged through a stack of papers and produced a receipt from the local fix-it shop. Here it is. Dropped it off the day before the concert. I was looking forward to driving it with the new stereo system. You know, it even gets channels from all around the world. The detective took the receipt, examining the dates and details. The timing matched the night of the murder. This new information steered the investigation in a different direction. Raphael's alibi and the Jeep being in the shop complicated the initial theory. Thank you, Mr. Franklin. This has been very helpful, the detective said, handing back the receipt. As he stepped out of Raphael's house, his mind was already racing with this new lead. The case had taken an unexpected turn, and now the focus shifted to uncovering who else had access to the fix-it shop that night. The mystery deepened, and the detective knew he was one step closer to unraveling the truth behind the murders at Henley Beach. The detective arrived at the local fix-it shop, a nondescript building on the outskirts of Henley Beach. The air was thick with the scent of oil and metal. He stepped inside, his eyes quickly adjusting to the dimly lit interior. Behind the counter stood a man, hunched over a workbench cluttered with radio parts and tools. He looked up as the detective entered, his eyes narrowing slightly. This was the radio installer, a man whose presence seemed to exude an unsettling aura. Can I help you? The installer asked, his voice raspy and unwelcoming. I'm investigating the recent murders in Henley Beach. I understand a Jeep Wrangler was here for a stereo installation, the detective stated, observing the man's reaction. The installer's expression remained unchanged, but there was a fleeting flicker in his eyes. Yeah, I remember that Jeep. The guy was a good tipper. As the detective conversed with the installer, his gaze wandered around the shop. He noticed a shelf cluttered with various trinkets and car parts. Among them, something caught his eye, a small, distinctive piece of jewelry. It looked eerily similar to an item described in one of the victim's reports. His suspicion growing, the detective continued to engage the installer, who answered reluctantly, his responses evasive and terse. The detective's experience told him that something was amiss. As the installer continued to speak, the detective's gaze roved over the other items on the shelf. A chill ran down his spine as he noticed a vintage wristwatch, its face cracked and its leather strap faded. Just as he was about to leave, the detective turned back, a seemingly casual afterthought in his tone. Oh, one more thing. I noticed your work shoes over there, he said, nodding towards a pair of muddy boots by the door. They seem to have sand in them. Odd, considering we're a bit away from the beach.
Murder Weekly is a Calaroga Shark Media production, written and hosted by Aidan I Flanagan, produced by Mark Francis, executive producers Mark Francis and John McDermott. Calaroga Shark Media.